Have any of you seen this? It is the latest issue of Time magazine, and it really excerpts a book that's coming out, I believe, tomorrow, in which we bemoan what has happened to our economy and the twisted influence of big banks, brokerage houses on our economy, and then the markets themselves are choking our economy, and they're the problem. There's a lot to read into this that's interesting, but a lot that Dave Maney finds out is distressing. By that, Dave, I guess the biggest issue is the people who put the markets up oftentimes to do the things they do, like to hand out mortgages, to collateralize mortgages. That is the government. But the government gets a pass. They do not. What'd you make of that?
Well, what I make is that, first of all, this thing read to me like it was the prelude to the Bernie Sanders presidential platform. I mean, it is all Wall Street's bad, how Wall Street is choking the economy, and nothing about the role of government or the responsibility of government. You want to know what's wrong? So you want to know 4 important words and kind of what's gone wrong in the way the economy works? Try Sarbanes-Oxley, Dodd-Frank. I mean, you have this tremendous sort of harnessing and misdirection of every financial institution in the country by an inanely sort of ignorant regulatory state. And then this journalist has the gall to sort of go and blame the institutions that are being misdirected and reined in, and like Gulliver being sort of tied down to a moronic sort of non-economic set of concerns. And it's just, the whole thing to me, the more I read about it, the less and less and less credibility it had.
All right, so you're not exactly a fan. Rana Forhar is the Time editor who wrote this book, Makers and Takers. She does get into that law, the Dodd-Frank law, and its disappointment, but again fingers the investment community for its short-term sightedness and how it gets its way and everyone else does not. Do you think that in this rage that's out there in both parties right now, whether it's true or not, that's what people feel? How do you disavow them of the notion Wall Street isn't the problem? Maybe the government is, or that if we're going to blame Wall Street, and there are some fat cats who take it to extremes and ruin it for everybody, but people lose sight of the fact that the meltdown didn't happen on its own. A lot of these guys were emboldened by the government itself to lend more, do more, and they found creative ways to do just that.
They found creative ways to do that, and on top of that, by the way, we have what I consider to be a true economic revolution being fueled by the internet, right? Which is really changing the way the whole economy works. It's just like the Industrial Revolution, except it would be as if the U.S. government had sat on top of the Industrial Revolution and said, geez, I don't like the way things are turning out, so I'm going to pick a bunch of winners and losers. I, Barack Obama, or the Treasury Secretary, or whoever you believe sort of is calling the shots, I know better than the market does. I know better than 300 and some odd million Americans making decisions at the same time, which is all the market is.
But this becomes the accepted public thing, right? I mean, the money monster's out with George Clooney bashing Wall Street. I mean, that's typical Hollywood. I understand that. But then along comes the Time cover espousing a book's view that, you know, Wall Street is a problem and all that. So people understandably are leery of the financial community, have doubts about it. Individual participation, the low it's ever been. Does that worry you?
Yes. Look, there's no question, Neil, that after time and time again in American history, after you've had financial panics, as we did in effect in 2008, you get an excess or a snapback of either regulation or public sentiment. And that too is kind of that's a market in and of itself, right? In the same way that Wall Street sentiment runs one way and the other, public sentiment is running one way and the other now. It seems to me that Donald Trump in his lucid moments has some realization or recognition, as Mr. Hubbard said before me, that private enterprise and people making their own decisions is the right way to go. If he sticks with that, instead of finding this very populist notion, he can be a great spokesman for it, and I certainly hope he does. But that sentiment is something that will have to be counteracted, because that narrative is really screwy, and this article is the epitome of that screwiness.
All right, my friend, thank you very much.